Hi everyone, and welcome to Jane Talks Real. It's nostalgia time once again, and I'm going to be talking about Jeopardy. Jeopardy was a Scottish sci-fi show that ran for 3 seasons from 2002 to 2004. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to be talking about the first season only, as that's all I watched as a kid. But all the episodes are on YouTube if you want to check out the whole thing. I will get around to it one day. Jeopardy was one of those shows that I remember, but nobody else seemed to, which is a shame because it wasn't that bad. It's kind of a cross between X-Files and Lost. The story is about 8 teenagers, around 15 I think, and their teacher who take a trip to the Australian outback to search for alien activity. They each have a camera, so it's all very Blair Witch Project in style, but it does use outside cameras too, just not very often. The framing device of the show is some rangers go to look for the kids and stumble across a video camera, and everything we see is the result of footage from that camera, which instantly doesn't make sense because they have several cameras and the footage wouldn't be edited together, but I'm not going to dwell on that plot hole because we have 13 episodes to cover, so let's go. Mr. Simmons, the head of the school's UFO club, held a contest and 8 lucky or not so lucky teenagers had their names drawn to come on the trip of a lifetime to the Australian outback. Shona is kind of the main girl. She's quite skeptical of the whole UFO idea, but she's interested in what the outback has to offer. Her mother is a doctor, so Shauna is seen as the responsible one. Leon is the party bro and is only going so he can pick up chicks. Sarah was my favourite character as she's level-headed, logical and capable. You go, girl! Her best friend is Lucy, who is dubbed the tomboy but hates that people call her that. Then there are the nerds of the group, David, who is super into UFOs and believes that everything is the result of aliens, and Harry, who is epileptic but refuses to take his medication with him. I'm sure that won't come back to bite him in the ass later. Finally, we have the most memorable characters, Simon and Chrissy. Simon is a grade A douchebag. He's captain of the football team and he's an asshole to everyone on the trip, including the teacher. Chrissy is a spoilt only child and therefore complains about everything in the outback and only signed up for the trip so she could spend more time with Simon. They are all given video cameras and encouraged to film everything. It's best not to think too hard on where all these tapes and battery power keep coming from. When they get to Australia, the group is met by Melissa, the ranger, who will be with them for the whole trip, and she introduces them to Arnie, who will be their point of contact back at base. The trip is for a couple of weeks, and Melissa has doubts about these kids being capable enough to last that long. She also finds out that the radio signal between their camp and base camp is pretty intermittent, and hands out whistles to everyone to be used in emergencies only. Before they head out, Melissa puts Shauna in charge of the first aid supplies, but Chrissy sabotages her by removing several items. Dick move, Chrissy! They take off in jeeps, and then they have to walk for several hours to get to camp, leaving the first aid box behind. Question? Isn't that the first thing you're going to want to take with you? Chrissy, to her dismay, is put in charge of food, and that night, Sarah sees weird lights in the distance. She tells the others, but nobody believes her, except for David, who believes everything, and arguments break out. The next day, the group are given tasks and split off, with Chrissy and Simon setting up monitoring equipment, and Melissa, Leon, and David looking for water. They find a boat and a newspaper from 10 years ago. While carrying the boat back to camp, David cuts his leg, and Shauna realizes she's missing some medical supplies. Melissa is not happy with her, and things go from bad to worse when Leon gets bitten by a snake. One of the items Chrissy removed from Shauna's kit was the anti-venom, and she feels guilty, while Shauna gets the blame. When they can't get hold of base camp for help, Melissa hikes back to the trucks, while David and Harry look for leeches to draw the poison out. Melissa gets to the trucks, but they've been broken into, and the medical kit is missing. She starts driving to the nearest town for help, but a dingo runs her off the road and she crashes. The leech has helped Leon's condition, but Melissa is teetering on the edge of a cliff. She gets out okay, but tries to reach back in for the radio, and that goes over the edge. Back at camp, the group finds strange holes and see an odd star that night. Melissa sleeps unprotected in the bush, and when she wakes up, things feel different. She's being followed everywhere she goes. Leon, who has gotten worse again, yells out a warning that Melissa is in trouble, and she disappears in a flash of light. Chrissy finds the food supply has been contaminated, and she admits to the group that she tampered with the med kit. With no sign of Melissa, the boys, led by Mr. Simmons, carries Leon back to the remaining jeep while the girls stay at camp in case Melissa comes back. Simon is a total asshole and gets into an argument with Mr. Simmons, which results in the latter falling over the waterfall. When he doesn't resurface, David and Simon go to look for him, finding only his backpack and some drag marks. They seemingly forget about Harry and leave him with Leon and take the remaining jeep. Harry tries to move Leon by himself and is unsuccessful, but he does find the missing medical supplies, including the all-important anti-venom. Then something really odd happens. Harry, with Leon, shows up on the road that David and Simon are driving on, with no explanation of how they made it there. They manage to contact Shauna back at the camp, who talks David through administering the anti-venom to Leon. They all get back in the jeep and go towards camp, but they get stuck in some mud. They start going on foot and then change their minds because it's getting late and they should probably sleep in the jeep and travel in the morning instead. The only problem is, the jeep is gone and Simon has the only set of keys. The girls at camp check on the equipment, but the microphones have been incinerated. Chrissy sees the trees writing messages, and despite the girls also witnessing this phenomenon, they decide that Chrissy just imagined it. When the boys get back to camp, Simon wants to leave and recruits Chrissy. They throw David out of the boat and row away by themselves. Simon thinks he sees Melissa and Mr. Simmons and capsizes the boat, landing them in croc-infested waters. Simon ditches Chrissy and runs after the two adults. He's completely delusional, but insists on chasing his hallucinations. The others in camp build an SOS signal and create smoke signals before breaking off into smaller groups to find Chrissy and Simon. They all hear a weird language coming through the radio, and then Harry and Lucy find the boat empty. They hear someone using their emergency whistle and follow the noise to a crop circle where Harry has a fit. Left behind at camp, Shauna and Leon have to deal with dingoes who attack. They make it up to a tree and scare them off with whistles. The search parties get back to camp to discover the dingoes have eaten most of their food. Meanwhile, Chrissy catches up with Simon and, realizing he's hallucinating, fully embraces the crazy and starts talking to the hallucinations too, tricking Simon away from them and back into the boat. That night, David insists on going to check the equipment and he's almost abducted. Sarah saves him from possible abduction and he's pissed with her because he's pretty much gone off the rails, blaming absolutely everything on aliens and yelling at anyone who doesn't agree. Everyone but Shauna goes out to look for Simon and Chrissy again, and while she's alone, she finds a buried cylinder, which she keeps to herself. She's so distracted that she lets the fire go out, which is bad timing because a plane goes overhead, drawing the others back to camp. But with no smoke signal, it just continues on its way. The group decides it's best to leave camp altogether, which is why the camp is abandoned when Chrissy and Simon make it back. The radio comes to life and they hear a message from Mr. Simmons, who is in trouble. Shauna shows the tube to Sarah while Lucy finds part of Melissa's clothing and her videotape. They watch it and discover what happened to her. Simon and Chrissy leave camp to look for Mr. Simmons, but Simon gets ill again, so when he comes across Melissa tied up in a cave, he thinks he's hallucinating and leaves her there. While Chrissy is radioing the others, Simon writes S4C on one of the trees as a marker. That is one of the most prominent things I remembered about this series before rewatching it. That and the snake bite. Chrissy and Simon find a hut, complete with the missing jeep, and inside is a tied-up Mr. Simmons. While they're untying him, some dude shows up. This is Joe, and he's super sketchy. But he does pull a tick out of Simon's neck, which was what was making him feverish and hallucinate. When the group tries to radio Chrissy, Joe locks him in the hut and heads out on a bike. David and Lucy opt to follow Joe when he rides too close to the group, while the others make it to the hut and are reunited with Simon, Chrissy, and Mr. Simmons. David and Lucy realize that Joe must be looking for the tube that Shauna found, and he must have been the one making all the alien hubbub to try and scare them away from camp. The group in the hut manage to get hold of Arnie, who says that someone from their group has been checking in daily, which is why he didn't know that anything was wrong. But the group realized that must have been Joe. Arnie says that help will be there soon. David confronts Joe, who says that he stole the cylinder from a bank vault 10 years ago, but he got caught. He was able to bury the cylinder before his arrest, and now he's served his sentence, he came back to dig it up, but the kids were camping on it, so he did all the alien stuff to scare them away. Lucy and David knock him out, steal his bike, and drag him back to the hut. While they're waiting for rescue, Joe admits that he wasn't responsible for everything the kids saw, just the lights that Sarah saw on the first night and some spooky noises. The rest of the stuff he puts down to the area being a hub of weird activity. It dawns on Simon that the Melissa he saw in the cave was actually real, and feeling guilty, he goes out alone to find her. Arnie shows up and recognizes the cylinder. He opens it to reveal it's full of diamonds. It turns out that Arnie was actually in on the scheme and Joe is his little brother. They lock everyone in the hut and try to make off with the diamonds, but while they're arguing, Melissa and Simon sabotage the van and steal the loot. They let the others out, but when the Jeep unexpectedly explodes, Mr. Simmons and Melissa go to check on the criminals. Simon takes the bike and goes after them, but is jumped by Joe and Arnie. The rest of the group mount a rescue, which results in Arnie breaking his leg and Joe disappearing. Melissa agrees to stay with Arnie while the others head for the ridge for an airlift. Before they make it there, however, Joe attacks David and Harry, and Chrissy comes to the rescue by throwing the diamonds into the bush. They make it to the ridge for nightfall, and as what they think is the police helicopter approaches, it splits into several lights, and the whole lot of them are abducted, leaving only their stuff behind. And that's how the season and my exposure to this show ends. It was a nice trip down memory lane, and although Simon and David were pretty annoying, the acting was okay in this. There was a lot of real and natural dialogue between the characters, and I liked the overall story. Honestly, I don't have a problem with only seeing the first season and nothing else, because aside from a cliffhanger, it's pretty self-contained. I liked that what they thought was aliens turned out to be a jewel thief that turned out to be aliens. It kept you guessing. So there you have it. That was Jeopardy! Did you watch this one as a kid, and who was your favourite character? Did you watch all 3 seasons, or are you in the dark like me? Let me know in the comments or come say hi on social media. If you enjoyed this video, then please like, share and subscribe. Join me next time where I'll be talking about a game show off the coast of France. I'll speak to you soon, and thanks for watching.